And we're back. Welcome back to another episode of the Hoop Junkies Podcast, the number one sports podcast in the world.
According to us.
I'm your host, Zach, and I'm joined as always by the stat guru man himself, Chance Baker. How you doing, Chance?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. What about you?
Man, I'm good. Can you hear me? I don't know if is my sound off?
I can hear you, but I also still hear our intro music, like in the background also. So I'm not really sure what's going on here. Maybe we can just let the intro ride for the whole pod too.
Well, no, the intro always rides at the beginning, Chance. It shows how much you pay attention to the inner workings of this podcast.
I thought once I said according to us, then it just like slowly fades out. I don't remember it lasting this long. Yeah. Or have I just never noticed in all the times we've done this?
You have never noticed this. Ever.
It always plays. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to check with some of our listeners. I feel like it's usually cut fun out.
No, you were just losing your mind. I can see you going full Bear Grylls mode over there. Look like you haven't shaved in weeks, haven't gotten a haircut. What is going on?
Man, the Grizzlies, man, when this happens, like I'm having a midlife crisis at age 29. You know, when you're 2-9 and you just keep having injuries. Marcus Smart rolls his ankle last night. I just got over the fact that the Lakers beat us by 67 points to put us out of our misery last year. And then we go back to LA and get beat by another 30. So I've basically just given up on life at this point. So yeah, I can't keep up with what's going on.
Well, hey man, at least like I mean, you kind of knew at least you knew what it was going to be. My team smacks the Pelicans one night, and then another. That's why I really hate how since the COVID has happened, how we do these back-to-back games now, because a lot of times, dude, you know how it is in the NBA. It is extremely hard to beat a team back-to-back within the same couple of days, just because motivation levels are different. The team. Mm-hmm. The team that lost, they're going back home and they're sitting there all day, all night thinking about what did we do wrong. And the team that won is like, all right, let's do it again.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you saw that with like the 76ers Pacers. The Sixers had that big win in the first game, Maxey getting 50 points when they go back in the second game and Indiana gets the win. Like if it's two relatively good teams, it's really hard. I mean, the Jazz beat the Grizzlies 2 games in a row, but it wasn't really back to back. But the Grizzlies lose to everybody. But yeah, it's really hard to go in with the way they do these schedules in the back to backs. And I don't know if I really like the back to backs like that, because if you look at like, let's say you're playing the Lakers in a back to back and LeBron happens to have a sprained ankle that week, that might be the only time you'd ever get a chance to see LeBron in your home team's court, and you miss him both times in that week. I kind of wish they'd go back to the old ways of like spreading it out more. How do you feel about all of that?
Man, I'm with you. I mean, because at the end of the season too, like from a seeding standpoint, you can catch a team at the beginning of the season, and let's say, like, for instance, let's say the Timberwolves, they're a hot team right now. They're on a 7-game win streak right now. They're dominating the league. They've got some of the best wins by beating Boston and Philly this year. No, was it Philly?
And the Nuggets too.
No, it's Boston and the Nuggets.
They beat Boston and the Nuggets.
Yeah, beating Boston and the Nuggets, having 2 big wins. The Timberwolves are hot right now, right? Now, as we all know, it's super hard. Even some of the best teams in league history have always had those peaks and valleys of a season, right? And it kind of sucks because any team that's playing the Timberwolves, if you play the Timberwolves 2 now and you're playing them at their best, I know you're definitely wishing that, like, I wish I could have got that other game maybe at another time, right? And so I'm
right.
I don't think it helps from a seeding standpoint of truly giving us a gauge on where a team is, because like we said, it's all over the league. It's like every other week you hear about a team in a home and home situation, right? Or 2 games at home, right? Or 2 games on the road. So I'm not a fan of it.
I get it because they're trying to reduce the travel. So like I get that aspect of it, but there are other ways to reduce the travel. Also, you can, spread out the season, shorten the season, which we know they'll never do. But like there are other ways to do it. But for your reasons too, like I'm not a huge fan of the back-to-backs. I want to see it more spread out more, but it seems like that's something that they've been doing more of as opposed to less. So I guess that's kind of the direction they're going. But either way, it is what it is.
Man, Chance, you talked about 2 teams earlier. in this pod, but the Philadelphia 76ers and the Indiana Pacers. And my question to you, Chance, is who are you more surprised by this year? Tyrese Maxey or Tyrese Halliburton?
I would say I'm a little more surprised by Maxi. I think he was ready for the moment. I had him, having a big year. But if you remember on our predictions pod, I was really high on the Pacers. I think I had them as like the 4 seed in the East. And that was kind of my hot take of that whole pod. And if you'll remember, my other hot take was that I had Philly near the play in, like around the 7 or 8 seed. So it looks
Mm-hmm.
like I was right on Indiana, but the Sixers are actually better than I expected. I didn't like the vibes that they had going in with the Harden situation. I think it was good that they were able to get him out of the door sooner rather than later. I think that definitely helped. And part of that is because they saw Maxi in that first week and they're like, okay, he's ready. Let's get Harden out of here. Like, this guy's good to go. And so overall, I'm not shocked by either because I think both of them are really good, underrated players. But the Sixers as a team being this good and this dominant with just those two, I'd say I'm a little more surprised by. I mean, Maxi, especially on defense, he's always been a guy that has not been a great defender, and he's still not a great defender, but he's given effort. He's getting block shots in transition. If he's giving you that on the defensive end with the guys he's surrounded by, him and Embiid are good enough as a 1-2 punch that they don't necessarily need a third star. We talked about this last pod. We know Morey is going to go for a third star because that's what he does. He doesn't trade for role players. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen next. But overall, both of these teams in the East look awesome, and the East looks a little more open. Boston is dominant, of course, but the Bucks are a little iffy. So we could see a Sixers Pacers team both get playoff advantage and get the top 4 seeds. Like, that's not out of the realm of the possibilities. They both look awesome right now.
Dude, I mean, speaking of the Bucks are down right now to the Raptors. It's the beginning of the game, but they're down 2-8. So I mean, you talking about the Bucks? I mean, they've had issues. It seems like getting in a rhythm offensively, and then it's also like their defense has just plummeted. Chance, like I know
Mm-hmm.
we talked about the coaching change earlier this season about maybe guys are just taking a minute to figure out what it's like playing under Adrian Griffin. What are some of the biggest concerns that you're seeing with the Bucks?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is you hit at the defense. They were always a top 5 defense in the league the past few years. And when you swap out Holiday for Dame, you know that you're going to sacrifice on the defensive end, and that's fine. But I mean, when you look at them right now, they're 25th in defensive rating, giving up 116 points per 100 possessions. Like, that is not Milwaukee Bucks basketball. And if Dame is not going to be a superstar, world beater on offense, which of course he'll have his games, but it also kind of shows he's getting up there in age. He didn't play a ton last season. I think some of that is kind of creeping up as far as the age concerns are getting to where you need Dame to be a dynamite 30-point per game guy if he's going to make up for the deficiencies on the defensive end. Another concern is even games that Dame is not playing, the defense still doesn't look great. So you can use the argument that Dame's a negative defender, which is true. But even when Dame isn't playing, they're still not a top above average defense. Brook Lopez doesn't quite look himself. Giannis, of course, can only do so much. The biggest concern for me with the Bucks is Chris Middleton. They've still got him on this minutes restriction 10 games into the season where he started out playing 15 minutes a game. Now he's playing around 19 to 20 minutes per game. I don't know. I haven't really dug too deep on if, what they're saying about that, if they're planning to ramp that up. But if he's only giving you 20 minutes per game, he's supposed to be your third guy. And if he's just cooked as far as his knees go, and that's all he can give you, that's a big concern because they don't really have a whole lot of depth
Mm-hmm.
behind their big three. So that's a big thing to keep an eye out. I just keep checking, keep waiting for those minutes to go up to 24, 25, 28. And it's just a steady 20, 21 minutes a game. So that's another big thing to keep an eye on. And yeah, I've got some pretty serious concerns with the Bucks title hopes right now.
Well, dude, and also if you look at Damian Lillard for his career, even as a rookie, he shot 36.8%. He is shooting the lowest from from the 3-point land at 26.9% from the field, or from three. So like that is a big drop off. Last year he shot 37%. The year before that, 32%. The year before that, 39, and then 40, and then 36. So he is for his career, he's floating anywhere around that 35%. So I mean, for him to be shooting a whole 10% less from three when he's playing in an offense that really kind of needs that, right? Because That's the
Right.
whole thing we talked about with this trade, talking about him and Giannis actually being complementary players, with Giannis dominating the paint and then Damian Lillard being a prolific scorer from three. But man, we just have not seen that. And I don't know if it's just, a change of atmosphere and things that he's still getting used to, his new loft or apartment or house or wherever he's staying at. I don't know what it is, man, but he is just not looked like himself.
He doesn't, and it shows with the whole offense. Looking at cleaning the glass, the team is 14.4 per 100 less on offense when he's on the court. They're a minus 14.4 compared to Giannis, who they're 9 points better with him on the court. So essentially, when Dame is on the court, they're getting outscored. Even on the offensive end, they're not scoring the way they should be. And of course, if that's not going to make up with the defensive efficiencies that they have, it's going to be a real problem. Obviously, Malik Beasley's not stopping anybody. Cameron Payne's not necessarily a world beater on defense. So they don't really have the guys anymore to make up for that. So yeah, I think there's some serious concerns there. Obviously, it's early, 8, 9 games into the season, things can turn
Right.
around, but and Dame's a playoff guy, so you just get there and you never know what could happen at that point. But as of now, the Bucks look like they have some serious holes, and some of that could be scheme, coaching. Obviously, it's tough for a first year coach. Will Hardy made it look easy last year coming in for the Jazz and them, being the 1 seed through the first month of the season. But we also have to remember that it's really hard for a first year coach to come in and be effective. But when you're inheriting a team like this, you expect to be better than this. And so,
Right.
yeah, I'm curious to see if they turn it around. It starts with Dame. Maybe they go small and use Giannis more at the 5, but at that point, you're just asking so much of Giannis, and he's a superhuman, but he can only do so much. So I'm not sure if there'll be somebody that could possibly be in the Zach LaVine sweepstakes. I don't really know if they have the assets for that. You heard the report earlier today or yesterday that LaVine's kind of hitting the market, so maybe they'd be a team that just needs another bucket getter, especially if Middleton's not going to be able to get back to what he was. But yeah, I think there's concerns on both ends for the Bucks right now.
Yeah. Well, and then Chance, you mentioned earlier in the pod about the Indiana Pacers, how that was your sleeper team as a team to be successful. If you remember, Chance, I picked those Houston Rockets to shock the world, Chance.
That they are.
And when I had picked them to shock the world, I wasn't picking them to shock the world to this extent, so I could not take credit for all of this. But Chance, they are a top 5 team in rating this year, and who would have ever saw that coming? They're also on a 6-game winning streak right now, I believe.
Yeah. Started
So
0-3, and now they're 6-3.
so Chance, what is Ime Udoka doing in Houston?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a big part of it. He's changing the culture essentially with him, Fred Van Fleet, Dylan Brooks. They had a very clear agenda in the offseason that they wanted to get not necessarily the most efficient players. Fred Van Fleet, Dylan Brooks, those are never guys that have been known for their efficiency. They've always been kind of, high volume but low efficiency guys, but they've always been competitors. And as a hardcore Grizzlies fan, I can tell you there was not a single game that I watched that Dylan Brooks wasn't giving it his all, getting in people's faces, ready to go. And I think sometimes little things like that can change the culture. For a guy like Dylan Brooks, like sometimes you just need a change of scenery. And I think he was, at that point with Memphis where that a lot of the fans are against you. A lot of people are clowning you online. He's not a big like online presence, but you still hear about that. And when that happens, you start to press a little bit. You want to shoot yourself out of it. And all of that just kind of magnified, especially going into that Lakers series for Brooks. Whereas now he has a clean slate, good coaching. Fred Van Fleet, I think, is a big part of that. He's another leader at point guard who can kind of keep Dylan Brooks in check. And Dylan Brooks is playing out of his mind. He's still, he looks even better on defense as far as guarding the other team's best players, sticking with them, but he's not trying to do too much on offense. And Jalen Green is looking great as a big, two-way guy. I thought he was basically just a guy that can get buckets and nothing else, but he looks to be a little more well-rounded so far. You attribute a lot of that to coaching as well.
Mm.
And then we haven't even discussed their best player yet. Alfred Sengun is just a little
Man,
mini Jokic out there. And so that's a big factor as well.
man, he's looked amazing, and I mean, you saw flashes of it last year, but man, the stuff that he's doing for that team, I mean, I'd be lying sitting here saying that, oh yeah, I knew Alperen Sengun was about to be the man that he is out here right now, balling for the Houston Rockets. But man, he's looked incredible. Definitely a candidate for most improved player. And it's funny because one of the most improved players that I had on my list was saying that he had a shot was Jordan Poole. And Chance,
Yeah.
Jordan Poole has looked
Ouch.
terrible.
Yeah, yeah, that one is rough. That whole Wizards team is a mess, to be honest. I'm not sure about the coaching decisions that they make throughout the games as well. I was watching their game the other night. I was coming home from out of town when they were playing Toronto, and they were up 21 points in the third quarter, or actually it was the fourth quarter, and they just completely blew that. Daniel Gafford looked awesome. He was blocking shots around the rim, finishing everything, and he just didn't even play the last 8 minutes. I think he might have been a little injured. I can't tell for sure, but some of their lineup decisions at the end are kind of confusing. And then overall, like, yeah, Jordan Poole, this was supposed to be his team. He's going to get pretty inefficient, but 28 to 30 points per game. And that is just not happening right now. Kuzma is basically the only one doing anything on the offensive end. Bilal Koulibaly's looked pretty solid as a rookie. I think he could be a good value pick that they got towards the back half at the eighth pick there. But overall, this team is just a complete mess. We weren't very high on them going into the season. I don't think anything has really changed in these first 10 or so games that makes us think they're going to do anything. Their defense is 29th in the league. They're not stopping anybody. They don't really have anybody on that team outside of Koulibaly, who's still a rookie. He's going to make rookie mistakes. So I think this is what it is. They're going to be a top 5 lottery pick team next year, and they can try again. But Jordan Poole, you'd expect to at least have a little bit of excitement, watching him, and it has just been nothing from him so far.
Yeah, man. I mean, Jordan Poole, I mean, he's averaging what, 16.2 points a game, 41% from the field. I actually am shocked. I actually thought it would have been in the high 30s, but he did cross that threshold, but then shooting 30% from three. Um, yeah, and averaging 2.8 turnovers a game to 3.7 assists. Overall, I mean, it just hasn't been a brand of winning basketball that they need, especially like the Wizards. They bring this guy over, right? And they're like, all right, we're going to give you a lot of clock with Kyle Kuzma. And all the opportunity is there. But man, it is rough to watch.
The
um,
the Wizards get outscored by 31 points per 100 possessions when Jordan Poole is on the court. That tells you all you need to know. It's pretty rough right now.
oh gosh. Chance. The in season tournament, what's some of your early takeaways to the tournament play so far?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I haven't really put too much thought into in-season tournament versus non-in-season tournament. I think overall the courts are pretty fun. There's a couple crazy ones, but overall I like the courts. I like that you can clearly tell if you're flipping on games like this is an in-season tournament game. A lot of people kind of have mocked the courts, but I'm cool with it just for the differentiation of that. I think the games for the most part have been pretty competitive, but overall the way I've looked at it is it's hard for me to get too invested into it because I don't know who's in whose group. I don't really spend a lot of time oh, this team's 2-0 in Group B, they have a shot to come out. I'm kind of waiting until the end. Once it gets to the pool play, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But overall, I think it's been for the most part a success. These games were going to happen anyways. So when people are all confused and crazy, I'm like, hey, look, all these games on Friday night, they were going to happen regardless. Now they're just wearing different jerseys. It's a different court. And, there's extra layers of standings that are going to go to this. So it's not like it's too much as far as them adding additional things. It was all games that were going to happen. I'm curious to see what happens once we get to games 3 and 4, where now it's okay, this is a game do or die. We win this and we're in the top 8 and we're going to the playoff bracket. Do coaches treat this like a playoff game? They shorten the rotations, or is it basically still just a normal national TV regular season game where not much changes? So I'm kind of curious to see what happens there, especially once we get to the playoff bracket where it's 8 teams left. Do teams go all out for it just to try to be the first inaugural in-season tournament winner, or they just kind of treat it like it is what it is?
Yeah.
But for the most part, I'd say it's a success. Maybe eventually they have to kind of change it up and add some more incentives for the winning team, but as of now, they didn't really have anything to lose because it's already regular season games. The only team that plays an extra game is the team that makes the championship. So overall, I'm cool with it. I think it's been fun, and it's a building block. A lot of other leagues have had success with something like this. The NBA is kind of trying to form that model and get people, more invested earlier in the season. And I think it's a good stepping stone, and we'll see kind of where they take it a couple years from now.
Yeah, the one thing they've got to figure out these courts, because you've heard so many issues with some of these courts, like them being slippery, players can't see the out of
3-point
bounds
line in the wrong
line,
place.
the 3 point
Yeah.
line in the wrong place. Dallas's court didn't even pass the safety inspection on the time they played the
Yeah.
Clippers, so they just ended up playing on their regular court. So I mean, yeah, they got to fix that. I'm sure the NBA is all up in that manufacturer's tail. For the people that,
Well, I think the courts, I want to say it was like a last minute decision. I don't think they were really planning on this going into the
mm,
tournament and like, hey, let's change the courts and that could make it, more fun too, which I think was a good call. But it
yeah.
does kind of seem like it was like a last minute decision and some of these, companies that didn't really know exactly like, oh, the NBA 3-point line isn't the same distance all the way around. We didn't know that. So like some stuff like that might have happened. But yeah, I think more time to prepare going into next season. There's still some things they could do differently. Um, it might even be a good idea as far as like the pool play. Zach Lowe had a idea, maybe just make it divisions so that you can easily know like who's in whose group. Because for the life of
Right.
me, I've just never gotten into like figuring out like, oh, this person's in this group. Oh, that's the group of death over there. Like I haven't been bothered to like keep up with all of that. So maybe if they just did divisions, that would make it a little more simple to follow leading up. But yeah, overall, fix the courts and it could be fun.
And if they did divisions, it'd be easier from a travel standpoint to where they could actually do some cooler things from that standpoint too. Like even if they want to do like a regional divisional thing and have multiple sites, so you do like March Madness, where you have like, all right, it's in Memphis this year, so all teams from the Southwest Division meet up in Memphis,
Yeah,
or
yeah, I
it's
think
like that. I think that'd be super interesting.
Yeah, I actually really like that idea. That could be something. And yeah, it's the first year. They're kind of seeing what they like and what they don't like. This will obviously be, expanded
Mhm.
on into the next coming years as well. So overall, I think it's for the most part a success. Really curious to see what happens when we get down to the 8 teams, and kind of see like how seriously it becomes taken then.
Dan, speaking of weird tournaments, did you get a chance to hear ex Clipper Lou Williams on the Trey Young podcast this week?
I saw that come up. What remind me what it was he said because I saw it going through Twitter. What was his
Well,
quote?
he basically said that, man. He said, "Well, we were
It was the bubble Lakers, right?
yeah, we were prepared to compete in the bubble, but then we basically found out that uh, nobody would respect this championship. So then we just all just gave up." On a scale of 100 to BS, where do you think that lands?
That obviously that's complete BS. Like that's just not a thing that like it's not like Kawhi Leonard's like, man, Lou, I was reading on Twitter and everybody thinks this is an asterisk tournament, so I'm gonna chalk it up, man. I don't care about this. Like that's just coping with them taking a loss. Like obviously there's always like the asterisk title joke that the Lakers get, but overall, like they won that championship and they deserved it. They were the best team in the playoffs that year. And yeah, to try to act like they were just sitting around and like, yeah, I don't think anybody's gonna care about this one, so let's not win it. Like come on now. That's ridiculous.
Oh, dude, when I heard that, I was like, bro, you shouldn't even said that right there, man. Like at the end of the day,
I
all
think
of y'all suited up and put clothes on and tied y'all shoes up. At that point, it's time to hoop.
yeah. I think there's a certain list of NBA players that when they're invited to a podcast, this should just be an automatic, like their PR person's like, no, you can't go on that. I think Carl Anthony Towns is clearly one of those guys. He's had some outrageous takes, him saying that, their play in win was more important than the Nuggets
Oh
championship. Like when you get
man,
a quote like that, you put him on the list and you say, okay, Carl Anthony Towns, you're not allowed on podcasts anymore. And anytime you say something outrageous like that, you just get added to the list. So we've got
yeah.
Cat, we've got Lou Williams. We'll see who's next. Someone will say something else crazy, but yeah, Lou Williams he just made the list.
Oh golly, lemon pepper Lou. Chance. We talked a lot about some of these in-season tournament games, but man, man, we hadn't even talked about probably the one game that everybody had their eyes on 2 minutes into the game. The Timberwolves Warriors. The Timberwolves end up winning that game by 3 points, 104 to 101. They improved to 8-2 on the year, and they actually have the largest win streak in the league right now. The Warriors, they moved to 6-6. Steph Curry didn't play that game, but Chance. Um, the score was 0-0. I was actually in the bathroom when this happened. And I was coming back out and was like, all right, I'm ready to watch this game. And all I hear is whistles flying, because McDaniels and Klay Thompson ended up getting into a little scuffle at mid court. And then Rudy Gobert comes in and looks like he's trying to break up, but it looks like honestly he had Klay Thompson in a headlock. And then Draymond comes out of nowhere and then puts Rudy Gobert in a headlock and drags him 3/4 of the way down the court. Chance, I've got a couple questions in this, but the first thing I'll start with is, do you think Draymond Green will be suspended? And if so, for how long?
I definitely think he will be suspended. It's funny. So I was watching. I had, last night was one of those great nights where like just games on all night. So I had a couple different games going on. That one had just started, so I hadn't even switched over to it yet. But I got all these notifications on Twitter that a brawl had happened a minute into the game. So I switched over, rewinded it back a little bit to see what happened. And the first thing I thought of was, why did he just go put him in a chokehold when Gobert was just trying to split up the fight? Like he didn't even do anything. Like Draymond always does crazy stuff and gets a little over aggressive, but like I was just so confused on why he decided that he needed to put him in a chokehold and carry him halfway across the court. It was so bizarre. So to answer your question, yes, I'm pretty confident. I'm about 95% confident he will be suspended. It is weird. As of now, I don't think we've heard anything yet. You would think that maybe we would have by now. As far as the games, I think it should be like 5 games. Like that was pretty outrageous.
Ooh.
I think it should be 5 because of his reputation. I think it'll
Yeah.
be probably 1 or 2 realistically, but I mean that was just so uncalled for. Like
Yeah.
Gobert was not. It's not like Gobert was like attacking another player or trying to fight another player. He was literally
Man.
trying to split them up, and Draymond just comes out of nowhere. So yeah, that
Chance,
was pretty wild.
I'm Team Draymond, man. I think what happened was, if you're in that moment, you just black out, okay? All right. And you see Rudy Gobert, your arch nemesis, basically has your longtime teammate, Klay Thompson. He has him wrapped up, and you don't know what your arch nemesis is trying to do to your longtime teammate. And that's when you go to work. And he just blacked out. He forgot he was in an in-season tournament. The court looked different, so he didn't think it was his actual home court. He was confused. He forgot where he was. However, yeah, he's still about to get about 2-3 games off that suspension.
Yeah, I think so too. I will say I do kind of like the argument of I blacked out. I think Ja Morant could use that argument every time he flashes a gun. Be like, hey man, I just blacked out. I don't know what happened. I
Stop
blacked
it.
out.
Stop
Let's
it.
go and get that reversed.
Stop
Yeah, I
it.
think
Stop it.
the blacked out clause. I think because as Shotgun Willies, it's a good chance he probably really was
Oh,
blacked out for a little bit. So
oh, you know what?
let's use that argument.
That is a legitimate use case. You know what? I'm not
Yeah,
going to dispute that to any degree.
yeah. I think if we're gonna go there, let's add a clause. You get to use it 1 time per season. Like, sorry, I blacked out. I don't know what I was thinking. Let's, no punishment. Let's move on. Every player gets to use it once. Use it at your discretion. If you want to wave a gun, if you want to put somebody in a chokehold, it is what it is. You get your 1 free blackout clause, and then after that, you get a real punishment.
Man, that's funny. Well, Chance, I mean, that's all I got really today. We're in the middle of the season, kinda, or the beginning of the middle of the season, whatever you want to call it. But do you got anybody on your list that needs some love or some people that need some hate right now? Go ahead and get it off your chest. If you do, if you don't, we out of here.
Yeah, I mean, the main teams that I wanted to talk about were the Pacers. The way they've looked so far, we kind of touched on them, but having the best offense in the league, like record-setting offense, they're getting 122 points per 100 possessions right now. Tyrese is just absolutely on a clinic. It got like 30 something assists in a row without a turnover. He's getting basically 28 and 14 every game now. Like watching him is just such a joy to watch. I've had so much fun watching their games. They basically just disregard defense. It doesn't matter because we're going to score 140 points a game. So just ignore the defensive side of the ball. They've been a lot of fun. We talked about Philly. They've been great. We're kind of at the point in the season where we don't really have to talk about Boston or Denver. We kind of know who they are. They're going to be, the 1 or 2 seed. We got the Murray injury news. He's going to be out for a little bit. Doesn't really matter. They'll still be pretty fine with Jokic as long as Murray's healthy for the playoffs. They're going to be the favorite out of the West. The Kelly Oubre story is really sad. We can touch on
Yeah,
that. For
super
those that don't
sad.
know, he was essentially walking like down the street, like in his own residence, and was struck by a vehicle, and that sucks. Obviously the situation is terrible, but Oubre was really having like his breakout season in a new environment. He was
Yep.
starting for the Sixers and looked like he had really solidified his role. The good news is they said he'll be evaluated or reevaluated in a week, which is great because it seemed like it could be something that was like months. And so already getting that news, like if it's
Mhm.
less than a month, that's great news, all things considered. So that's a sad situation. Um, we had the letdown of the week, the Chet versus Victor Wembanyama game last
Oh,
night that was
it
just a
was.
blowout from the beginning.
Yeah,
So
it was
not really a whole
terrible.
lot to talk about there. Yeah, I think Chet is kind of going under the radar. I'm just spewing out random thoughts right now, so bear with me. But I think Chet's going under the radar a little bit because of how great Victor Wembanyama has been. But I think
Mhm.
Chet is still a sleeper too. You picked him as Rookie of the Year, I believe, and I still think there's a chance that could happen because he's looked really good too. And yeah, the Grizzlies are still terrible. Lost some more guys to injuries, and that's about all my thoughts on the league right now.
Well, hey, I think we're getting the first time the big three roll out today. I think the Phoenix Suns they're going to have their core three available today for the
What
first time.
What better game to test that out than against the number one defense of the Minnesota Timberwolves? That's going to be an exciting matchup because if there's any team for the Minnesota to show how legit their defense really is, it's against that big three. And for the Suns, if you want to
Mhm.
really see, like if I were them, I'd wait another game. Be like, I don't want to roll this out against Minnesota. Let's go ahead and wait until Friday. So really curious to see how that matchup goes. The Suns have been obviously struggling. Beal's still kind of getting ramped up. KD's been KD, but they need some help around the edges, and getting Booker back will be huge. So definitely got an eye on that matchup tonight for sure.
Man, and then before I get out of here, I'd be remiss to not shout out the Miami Heat because honestly, it looked very bleak for you guys for a minute, okay? But you've got Bam Adebayo playing all world. Probably gonna is probably at this point and is my leading candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. Shout out to the Heat, and then Chicago, time's ticking. Y'all got to figure it out. Sounds like Zach
Yep.
might be out the door.
We've been saying it for a year and a half. It's time for the Bulls to blow it up. We finally got the report that them and Levine are kind of mutually agreeing to part ways. Maybe on the next pod, once it gets a little more serious, we can talk about some potential suitors for Levine. But yeah, it's beyond time for them. The whole Lonzo Ball injury just kind of really ruined their trajectory, and it kind of is what it is at this point. It's time to embrace the rebuild, get Levine out of there, get Caruso out of there, send him to a contender because Caruso is still one of the most underrated players in the league too.
Yep.
Send him to any other 29 team and he'll make them better. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, I think come December, January, the Bulls will be an active team on the market because it's time. They have to embrace it.
Well, you heard it from the man himself. They gotta embrace it. Well, until next time, y'all. Make sure y'all like and subscribe and follow us wherever you at. All right, y'all. Until next time, we'll holla at you. Peace. Chance. So we hit end on this pod, and now we're back here because Draymond Green just got suspended for 5 games. You thought he deserved, but there still has to be a little ounce of you that's a little bit shocked that he got 5 games, right?
Yeah, I'm surprised because as I just said about 7.5 minutes ago, I thought he deserved five. I thought the NBA would give him one or two. I think this is clearly a reputation suspension that baked on the additional 3 games. I think if this is like Steph Curry or Kevon Looney or someone random like went and did this, they'd probably get like a game or two. But because it's Draymond and he has a history of just wild, reckless things, maybe he tried the blackout clause and it got denied by Adam Silver. But yeah, 5 games. So we're just kind of looking at their schedule. So who are the Warriors' next 5 games? What do we think is going to happen from here? Because Steph has the knee sprain, so he's being reevaluated in what, a week or so.
Mm-hmm. And then, so here, I don't know exactly when being reevaluated. You can look that up, Chance. But as far as the schedule, they've got. Here we go, talking about those back to back games of the same team. They've got the Thunder tomorrow night, and then they've also got on Saturday they've got the Thunder again. Then they've got Houston at home, and then they've got Phoenix on the road. And then they've got an in-season tournament game against Wembanyama and the Spurs at home. So, Chance, legitimately, there is a world in where these Golden State Warriors can go 0-5 in those games that Draymond Green is out.
Yeah, there is. I think you hope to get that Spurs game, and try to get one of the other ones. If you can go 2-3 in these next 5, then you're actually feeling really good about things. But yeah, I think 1-4, 0-5 is not out of the realm of possibility. We didn't really talk about Pods, who looked awesome last night. He was just a guy getting buckets, who I think has earned himself into the rotation. Late first round rookie who could be one of the steals of the draft in a class that's looking pretty solid so far. But he was just getting buckets from all over the floor last night. Really stepped up when they needed him too, because they were down so many guys already with a double ejection, Steph being out. So that's what I'll have my eye on the next 5 games. Is Was that a one hit wonder? Does he look like he can be a rotation guy right away? Because he's going to get the opportunity now with Draymond out for 5 games, Steph out. Clay still never going to play 38 minutes a night anymore, so he'll get some opportunities. So definitely keep an eye on that. But yeah, I think if you're the Warriors, 2-3 at this point would be good news.
Man, rough. Well,
And
look,
another thing to add, we just talked about how the Suns were finally getting their big 3. Late scratch Bradley Beal has been ruled out tonight.
are you serious?
We're It might not be until the playoffs until we see all 3 of them on the court together, the way this is going. I'm not sure what
Oh,
happened. I had that come across in the ever evolving NBA world, but yeah, he's been ruled out tonight. His debut is delayed. So
oh gosh, man, dude. But you know what? That is one thing. I said, Chance, going into the season. Well, both of us said this, that hey, it's great that they put this big 3 together. Super cool that they were able to do this. Super cool they were able to go get rotation guys and fill in this roster. But the the truth is still the truth. The big 3 that is in Phoenix, none of them have played a full season in a long time.
yeah,
Whenever you think about that, dude, this is uh I think this is going to be a consistent issue for the Suns.
yeah, it is, and they've been fortunate. KD has been able to play every game so far. At some point something will happen to him. That's just the reality of being in your mid 30s, playing high intensity basketball for 15 years. He's going to have injuries as well, and yeah, it's unfortunate. I just really want to see what it looks like when they're all 3 on the court together, just to get a glimpse of what they're capable of. But I'm not sure what happened. I mean, the game is literally in an hour and a half, and he was a late scratch, so not sure what the deal is, but I guess we have to wait another couple of days, and hopefully it's not a long term setback, and he can make the next one. But yeah, it's going to be a story all season for them.
Boy, ooh wee, it's some rocky times out west
It
for a
is.
couple teams, man. But anyways, I think we're safe. So I'm about to go ahead and end this pod.